been followed that closely for a long time, but now that our focus is on it, things will be enforced more and more. So changing any of the laws. We are now, because it's in the limelight, heading towards a society where we are calling for greater equality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but yet I can see that the current Aussie government is trying to reinforce, the monitoring on individual people, such as they in Australia Post, they used to just let us collect those parcels without having to present them our IDs, and yet in the final year, while I was still staying in Sydney, I suppose it was year 2016. Australia Post, they started to to monitor our IDs, our a proof of the address before we collect the parcel. So, do you think my perception here sounds reasonable? That the government has
so
tightened
basically
monitoring?
that's less to do about equality and more to do with civil liberties and privacy. So in Australia, I think 2006 was the first time we had a huge attack on our privacy in Australia.
2008.
2006, I think it was, from memory. I'm trying to remember because I went to a debate about this at the Four Seasons in Sydney. Stephen Conroy, he proposed an internet filter. So that's censorship. And there's a lot of politics behind it. And there was a lot of online groups who were really, really opposed to it. And it did turn a lot of people, especially techies, off Labor completely.
So you mean those labours were rendered obsolete and they got laid off?
No, Labor Party.
Laid back. So
Labor Party.
Oh, Labour Party.
So the political party. Yes, sorry.
My bad. Excuse me. I heard it wrong. Labour Party. Okay, I see.
Well, things that we've had in Australia recently. So we've got the internet filter. We've got so telecommunications and ISP metadata is retained for 2 years. We've got various places where we do have to give more ID. We do have facial recognition on a lot of the CCTV that's around. What else? We've had quite a few things head in this direction. We're not quite as bad as England. We are getting there. It's starting to become very 1984.
Yeah, I have heard that the Great Britain, UK has become one of the enemies of the internet by the borderless reporters. They call they address UK now as one of the enemies of the internet, since UK has reinforced the monitoring over its people, and no matter whether the subject that being monitored are British nationals or non-British nationals. Yeah, pretty much everyone is under heavy surveillance, and they kind of according to what I heard and according to what I saw on Wikipedia, the British government also blocks access to several politically sensitive websites.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's pretty saddening to see. It's pretty saddening to see this happening in Australia.
It is. Yes.
Yeah. So
few years ago, there was a slip up with the internet filter, and it took off quite a few websites, including a local dentist who got knocked offline.
Outlook Dental. Outlook Dental.
What's that?
Were you saying
a local dentist?
Outlook Dentist.
Local dentist.
Local dentist. Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
My bad. Excuse me.
No problem.
So what happened to them? What were they up to?
They weren't up to anything. They were just collateral damage. So basically, there was one website that the Australian government wanted to knock offline. So they banned that IP address, but that IP address was hosting about 2,000 websites.
2,000 websites, and once they ban one single IP addresses, once they ban
so
a single IP address,
so it's disappeared from online.
All access to those thousands of websites are cut off. That's freaking ruthless, man.
Yeah.
Ruthless and reckless.
So it's pushed a lot of Aussies just to use VPNs now.
So even if in Australia a seemingly fully democratic country, there are still some people who are using VPN to block certain access. Including
we have a problem with a lot of things in Australia. I think there's not insignificant portion of the population who uses VPNs now. I reckon 20% of the population.
Less than 20%.
You're more tech-savvy people, or it's probably around that number. As to access information or content. It will grow very, very quickly.
I see.
It's going to be interesting to see where we are in a few years.
So in fact, I have another question that concerns with privacy and publicity. Do you agree? First of all, do you agree with the statement here? There's a trade-off that it exists between, privacy and publicity when it comes to doing business, when it comes to publishing necessary and essential information to customers, and when it comes to managing employees, and when it comes to dealing with government officials and agencies, right? There's a trade-off there. Do you agree with that?
There is, to a degree. Now, in Australia and a lot of Western countries, Japan's got something similar too. I remember reading up the laws the other day. We do have the Privacy Act, but it doesn't cover all businesses. Now, gist of the Privacy Act is if you collect information, and various parts of the Privacy Act talk about whether they're your employees or whether they're clients or whether it's for research. So when you collect information, you should only collect the information that you absolutely
needed.
Then you do, yes, and then you do have a duty to protect that information, except for a certain amount, not disclose that to third parties.
So we can pretty much gather, phone call recordings, private texts, pretty much freely, as long as we don't disclose them to third parties, to third unauthorized parties, right?
Phone calls, etc. come under a different thing. So they've got the Telecommunications Act, which actually prevent you from recording phone calls, etc.
So there is a trade-off there. And
There are some exceptions. There are some exceptions if you need to get permission, or if it's a matter of public interest. And there's a few other small exceptions, but they're basically it. So we do have that too. Basically, the reason is a lot of people who are in the public limelight have their public persona and their private persona, and they try to separate as much as possible. Lots of people do like to use a pen name or pseudonym or some kind of name to or identity to hide behind when they're online, especially if they're a public personality. Unfortunately, because now we've got the masses on the internet that are all trying to give information or tell things, you nowhere near as trusty as they used to be. So now we pretty much, unless someone puts their real name to it, online, the vast majority of people are hiding names. It's rare to get someone to put their real name to an argument, and they're generally the only arguments I'll ever respond to or listen to anyway. Yeah.
So it pretty much sounds to me like life, the actual empirical situations, they don't usually make our lives, our jobs as easy as that. Sometimes it just makes it very difficult for us to choose. Sometimes we hardly have an alternative choice. Sometimes we, even myself, I just feel that I had to do it. Sometimes, when
Yes.
when let's say when I, let's say for example, apparently someone leaked or tipped the authorities, the local authorities off about an imminent suicidal bombing. And then it turns out to be a false alarm. And yet the police, they have already gathered, the information they are generally not supposed to gather. So do you think it is justified?
So we call that overreach.
Overreach.
In a less paranoid society, that data should be destroyed.
How about in Australia?
Or anonymized.
Do you think
it's supposed to be? It's not. Look, every time there's a protest you see, especially in New South Wales, it's exceptionally bad. It's out there with the video cameras. And they're basically making lists of people who they want to surveil. Anything that goes against the establishment is basically fair game. Some of these lists have come out recently. So one of the lists which made the news recently in Australia is a list of young people who are potential future offenders.
Young people of potential future offenders. So they actually
so they've never committed a crime.
So they came out with this concept.
They might.
to accuse those youths, right? To accuse those youths who don't actually.
List, and every time they come across one of those people that are on the list, they'll do a search.
So it's pretty much.
They'll go to their home all the time and ask them what they're doing.
So it sounds like a joke to me, and yet such things still occurs in Australia, especially in the state of New South Wales. So they basically they just falsely accuse of those teenagers and youths who don't do so well academically at schools, and they just assume they have the inclination towards violence, towards committing various types of crimes, especially violent ones.
Correct.
So was that you were trying to say? Yeah. So it is
No,
very unfair,
that's
and
correct. So.
it is very unfair and unjustified.
Yeah.
It goes against the whole value of Aussie community.
It is one of the most un-Australian things I've ever actually seen.
It is still very common in Australia.
Yes. Yep.
Shit. Then that's not good news. That's not good news.
No, not at all. We've gone backwards a lot in the last 5 years.
Are the public aware of this? Or the majority of the public aware of this fact? No?
Half the public. Half the public.
Okay, so it's not.
Yeah.
It is still.
You've got a lot. If you've got a member of the public that picks up a range of newspapers and has a read, 100% they know about it.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the other half who either don't pick up a newspaper or subscribe to just a really small subset of the news.
Mm-hmm.
And they won't be aware.
I see. So it's pretty shitty.
And even of the people that are aware, there's actually a lot that are in support of it too.
Mm-hmm. And so it is hardly considered public knowledge then?
Yeah.
Hardly considered public knowledge?
Which it's there if you want to know it. There's that many people that just don't want to know.
Uh-huh. They just don't want to know.
They switch off.
Mm-hmm. Switch off. Okay. I see. So,
they'll hear this news and just think, so what?
So, do you think we should do something? We should do something about it, or we just? Well, apparently we are, right?
Well, actually, yes.
Apparently
so,
we are doing something.
We are. A few of the groups that I'm involved in are tackling this. So this comes from a couple of root problems, and that's what we're trying to tackle at the moment. What people are calling traditions. So in Australia, we are a very, very young nation. So, and we do have people from all different kinds of backgrounds. So we've got a lot of different traditions. Now, these problems have actually stemmed from some of those traditions, and it's those things that we're trying to address at the moment. So we're debating about it. It's it's part of, so it's actually the marriage equality debate was part of the same battle. So back in Australia's early days, when we started getting established, we built our traditions around a certain hierarchy. And that hierarchy was determined by a number of things, including race, religion, family. Basically a whole bunch of things. What this list is doing, basically, if you're white and Protestant, you won't end up on the list.
Like you, right?
Yeah.
Like you, yeah. But
no,
not
I'm not Protestant. I was, but yeah.
Yeah, I see. So the system.
So that's one of the things that we're trying to address at the moment. So, and that's my part in the Religious Freedom Review. The definition of religion in Australia is so narrow, it only covers a few religions.
Only a few, only a handful, right? Less than 5?
Yep, pretty much that's it, yeah.
So is Falun Gong called, or is Falun Gong defined as a religious group in Australia?
No.
No?
Not under law.
No,
neither is Buddhism.
Just a branch of Buddhism. But
neither is Hinduism.
I see.
So the High Court has set precedent that basically need to believe in a thing that still exists and requires worship for it to be classified as a religion.
I see.
So that means that there's probably around 3,900 belief systems out there that don't classify.
300 and unclassified, uncategorized.
3,000.
3,000 uncategorized religious groups. And the government just doesn't acknowledge.
They won't get classified as a religion, so they won't get their tax exemption. They won't get the freedoms that other religions do.
But, well...
So I'm taking 2 roles in the Religious Freedom Review. One is I'm trying to some of the protections that the religions have that have caused a lot of problems in this society, but at the same time widen how a religion is defined so that other groups are offered the same protections.
I see. Does sorry about that. Yeah. In fact, I was just wanting to say that even the government has the capacity to look after things and people. They are taxed to capacity and limitations, and their resources are limited. They are not infinite. So they still have to choose. They still have to make choices, especially harsh choices. So they just have to filter most of them out of the equation, right? And thus they can't acknowledge or accept to officially define most of them as independent and autonomous religious groups.
Yes. So basically what happened in Australia, we've got the Constitution, which is the founding document of Australia. It even gives rules on what the government can and can't do. And one of those rules is known as Section 116, which basically forbids the government from making any law regarding religion that favours one over another or gives one an advantage or prevents someone from practicing a religion or forces a religion on someone. Now, what has been done over time is that certain sittings of the High Court have watered down what a religion is so that they've been able to narrow down religion to the groups that they're trying to favour and then allow for those groups to sneak their laws into Australian legislation. So, unfortunately, under our common law system in in Australia, but it's something that really, really needs to be challenged. And if we can't challenge it, I do think that we need an amendment to the Constitution to remedy this, and that requires a referendum.
That will certainly bring some radical changes, perhaps even.
Yes.
This thing can go either way. It can either deteriorate or improve, right? So we have to make our choices here very, very carefully.
Look, we go the other direction. We're going to have some major issues with the UN, because they've already been warned on this. Religious freedom is sort of protecting religious freedom is something that we have agreed to in the UN, and we were one of the because we want other countries to exercise religious freedom. And we said, look, it's in our constitution, we're the bastion of religious freedom, and we push this onto half the world.
Agreed.
And now the people in our government are trying to wind it back. So they've pushed this onto other countries, and now they're trying to say, oh, but it doesn't apply to us.
Yeah.
It's not going to hold water at all. If we do review it, we do change the constitution. It's only going ahead in one direction, and I do believe that's the right direction.
So that direction leads to further improvement, as you reckon.
Yes.
Right. Nice. And
Correct.
but
I said correct. Did it cut out?
Oh, yes, sir. My bad. Excuse me. I thought you were saying but, never mind. Yeah. Well, please allow me to switch on lights.
No problem.
I can't see you that clearly. Okay. Awesome. Can you see me now? Nice. Yeah. So perhaps it's time we make some transition to some different topics. Yeah. So based on what based on the information we have exchanged so far, do you think in improving the the current Aussie legislations regarding to freedom of religion will lead to more, let's say, more opportunities for small to medium-sized business entities? Do you think it will make doing business in Australia a lot easier than it used to be?
Of course, any movement towards equality will make business easier. Traditionally, only your elites and your rich could get into business. That has changed over time. We've still got a few hurdles in Australia.
Such as?
That comes down to discrimination or status.
Yes, that's well known.
There are financial hurdles too, but I'm trying to address those through equity crowdfunding. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the reasons I'm pushing for laws to allow any idea to get funded. Mm-hmm. Get the help of the banks. Mm-hmm. I believe once we address the equality issue and we address the financial issue, then anyone with the ambition and drive can go into business. Mm-hmm. I believe that's the only way forward, because in 10 to 15 years from now, 90% of the jobs that we've got, I don't think will exist.
90% of the job.
I think it's really, really important to push entrepreneurship, and that's what the vast majority of my life working on.